Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Down the Slope. I'm Liam. I'm joined by three of the usual reprobates this week, fresh off the 24 hours on almost from League Cup final defeat against Celtic. I'm joined by Ewan, Greg, and Harry. Not going to ask how they are because I don't care. So we're going to go straight into talking about the League Cup final. First of all, Harry, how was your day out?
Day out, mate. It was magic. It was everything I wanted it to be. The venue, fair play to Ewan. We got a bit blindsided by one of the venues that we'd originally got booked, and we ended up getting ourselves a magic wee function suite in which we got to play our own tunes the whole time. We probably all had a little too much to drink, and and a lot of emphasis on the word "a lot" to drink because we had a lot. But yeah, no, venue day itself had a great time. As always, the worst part of being a Hibs fan is the Hibs.
So wonderfully put, Harry. So wonderfully put. Ewan, about 1:45 yesterday, team lines come out. You're managed to finally get some Wi-Fi signal in the downstairs function room that you're in. What were your first impressions when you saw that team line up?
I think it was probably the team we expected. First impressions, like Harry said, we were a fair few shandies down by that point, so I probably thought it was a good team. I think on reflection, it was a mistake not to go 3-5-2. We boiled down the middle. I think we probably all agreed that if we could, we should have probably got as close to the team that played Rangers as possible. Ultimately, we maybe made just the one change from that day with Murphy playing over Cadden, I think, and ultimately an entire change of shape. But the lineup itself was probably as expected, if not maybe for that one change. But obviously, Cadden did get injured after 20 odd minutes midweek. So,
yeah, semi-fit Chris Cadden's definitely a much better option than Jamie Murphy. I was okay with the team. Other than that, I thought that was probably the one thing for me that was a concern. He's not performed. He's very much bare minimum performances. But I thought the 3-5-2 was the way forward with, like you say, boiled down the middle. Because I feel like when he's out wide, he can get isolated. He can get doubled up on if he's down the middle. It's a bit easier to be more fluid and in and out the pockets of space. But yeah.
What about you, Harry? Were you too merry to care about the team at that point, or did you have any initial reflections?
I just, as I said the other day, I wanted us to be 3-5-2. I'm not often, I don't bang the 3-5-2 drum as much as maybe say Greg does, but I just think it's a formula that's worked for us before at Hampden in terms of performances, not really results. So I don't really understand why we stepped away from that. But it's a cup final. You've just got to hope that the players turn up, and a certain one that started definitely did not.
Yeah, okay. So game gets underway. Really hard to give much of a review to the first half because there wasn't a huge amount of content to talk about. But Greg, let's just take the first, say, sort of 20-25 minutes. What was your initial impressions of how we started that game?
I felt like we were on the back foot pretty much straight away. I don't really remember us getting out our own half for a long period of time. I felt like we were camped in quite a lot. Celtic were moving the ball about. We defended well, to be fair to us. I think that we did defend well. We dealt with crosses and corners or whatever that came in. I think kind of really for the first 20-25 minutes, I wanted us to be 0-0 because I didn't think that you knew that Celtic were going to come out of the traps and go after us. But we defended well. We kept it tight, and I was kind of hoping from there we'd kick on. But it didn't really quite happen in the first half.
How much do you think, I'll ask this question to you, and how much do you think Hibs tried to learn from the game at Easter Road against Celtic and the way that game started, particularly thinking about the sort of first 12-13 minutes? Did you think that formed part of the blueprint for how we played?
I think so. I think so. We've seen over the last 18 months or this season and that last season that games against Celtic and a worse Celtic team probably than the current one, the games can get away from you in the blink of an eye. I didn't feel like that in the first half. Obviously Celtic didn't score, but I think maybe we turned around to each other at about 20-25 minutes in, and when we referenced it had sort of went past quite quickly, and I think that is an indication of, albeit without doing much on the ball, how comfortable we were in the game. I don't recall Celtic even having a shot on target in the first half. I think there was a deflected shot from the edge of the box that maybe Macy tipped round the post that was probably going wide anyway. Obviously from our angle at Hampden, you can really tell if he saved it or not, given that you can't really see fuck all no matter where you are in Hampden. But no, I thought the first half was decent. We could have done more on the ball, but you've got to accept, I think, in these games, you've got to build your way into them, and it gives you a platform to hopefully do more in the second half, which I think the first half gave us.
Harry, 45 minutes against probably I would argue anyway, the best footballing team in Scotland, 0-0. You take that, right?
Mate, I'm in the minority. I thought first half was the game plan. I thought make sure Celtic don't take an early lead, make sure that if they're in control of the game, they're not looking threatening. There wasn't a single moment in the first half where I felt that Celtic were going to score. At halftime, I was happy with the fact that Celtic had done nothing. Obviously, it's frustrating when you're sitting deep, but being honest, I don't think there was too much differences from the way we played in the first half compared to the way we played the first half in the semi-final, apart from the fact we got 3 chances in the semi-final, took them all, whereas in this game we didn't get any, which was obviously frustrating, but defensively, I thought we were fantastic in the first half.
Yeah, it's definitely some defensive highlights in the first half. Let's move on. Let's talk about the second half, because that's where all the incidents really were. That's where all the talking points are. Greg, what did you make our start to the second half?
It was better. I felt like we tried to almost take control of the game, try and stamp our authority on it. We tried to push forward in numbers. We tried to make things happen. And then obviously we get the goal pretty early on. After that,
things did happen.
Absolute chaos.
we tried to make things happen, and things happened. Right, yeah. Ewan, talk us through the goal.
Well, I think the goal, what led up to the goal, maybe explains why we didn't do as much on the ball in the first half. The easiest way to get at Celtic is to punt it behind them. Celtic are good in the middle of the park. Bypass the middle of the park. They do look shaky at the back. All good things that we done in the game came from long balls over the top. Starfelt didn't cover himself in glory before the corner, and then Hanlon gets away from him. And it's a real good header. I think he would have been extremely unlucky if it had been cleared off the line by that Juranovic, because Hanlon does the right thing and gets a good header downwards back across the goalkeeper, and that was a fantastic 20 seconds after that.
Was it as long as 20 seconds?
Well, you've got to factor in the celebration time. So, when you factor in from when the ball hit I was going to say hit the back of the net, but hit the ground. I'm surprised John Beaton was able to see that it was over a line, to be honest.
I think his assistant.
It was his watch.
Gave him a hand.
Oh, did they have goal line tech at Hampden?
Yeah, as far as I know, because I'm sure from what I seen, he was pointing to his watch.
Right. Okay. Well, John Beaton pointing his
watch.
Maybe
telling Celtic to hurry up and score, but
how far Paul Hanlon's run up was for his header. Because I swear to God, he starts for the edge of the box. He just runs for about 20 yards before he actually heads it. It's incredible. I watched the goal back just before we started recording, and honestly, it's quality. What a moment. They could have at least given us 3 minutes to settle down, sit down, and then they could have scored. There was no need to do it straight away. I thought what happened, it was that quick. I genuinely thought our goal had been chopped off. I didn't realise that they'd scored for about 5 seconds. I was like, what? Brutal.
I am one of the fannies who hadn't stopped celebrating when they scored. I was as I quite often find myself, and I think it's just, I don't think it's an accident. I think I actually do it deliberately now. I was behind the seat in front of me on the ground when Celtic scored, so I can't give you an honest reflection of how it took place at the game. In no way is it funny at all, but some of those videos that have surfaced of the Hibs fans celebrating and then literally Celtic scoring afterwards are very, very rife, I should say, on Twitter today. Not made for the most pleasurable watching the day after the night before. But let's go on. We basked in the glory of having taken the lead, gone 1-0 at Hampden. A matter of seconds later, Greg, Celtic are level. What do you make of the equaliser?
I couldn't even see it, mate. I could not even see it because I think it was someone set off a smoke bomb. Watched it back on the highlights, and it's just the usual stuff in it. The Hibs aren't aware. Hibs aren't awake at the back. centre halves, right back, all out of position. It's very, very, very simple for Celtic. Teams don't really need to try very hard to score against us, it seems. So, yeah, I have to watch on the highlights to capture its full glory, but very, very frustrating, especially after taking the lead. You know, I was hoping for maybe even 5-10 minutes of trying to calm it down, get back in a rhythm, disrupt Celtic's tempo. Yeah, 6-7 seconds since the kick-off or whatever it went in, so not good.
There was a lot of negative things about Furuhashi's performance yesterday, certainly at least from a Hibs perspective. But how much do you have to appreciate his movement in the run-up to that Celtic goal?
I think... sorry, Greg.
Sorry, was that for me or you?
You take it.
I'll let you take it.
Right.
My throat isn't very kind in the listeners' ears tonight.
I think we spoke about. I think generally this season, I've on the goals we concede tried to credit the opposition when they score. I do sometimes think you have to hold your hands up. I think from the moment it gets the ball, it's one that you can hold your hands up and say, "Yep, great touch. It's not an easy ball to control. It's a good finish." But I don't think Hanlon and Porteous cover their cell in glory. It's good movement to find them selling between the centre halves, I guess, but it comes straight from the kickoff, and the gap in between the two centre backs is poor. I think Hanlon's a yard further up the pitch than Porteous is, and I think Hanlon has to take his line off with Porteous, given the ball's at that side. But no, it's a real good goal, and I think the first touch is what stops. It takes Macy out of the game as far as I'm concerned. I think his first touch is that good. It really does it gives him the option to put it near post or far post. And I think, look, it is a real good finish, and the first touch is very, very good. But it's just disappointing, mate, innit?
I'm going to disagree. I don't think it's particularly great striker play. I think that if you can run in behind a centre back flapping like Porteous, see, one thing that really winds me up, Porteous, as soon as the guy runs behind him, he doesn't react. Then he's like, shit, he's behind me. As soon as the ball hits the back of the net, he starts complaining for offside. If he actually thinks he's offside, he's complaining straight away. That's just trying to get an excuse out. And then Hanlon's standing about 3 yards behind where Porteous is, keeping the boy on side. It's horrendous for the pair of them. They just should not be centre-back partners. And I'm praying to God that in January we get a starting centre-back, because those two can't continue. It's just embarrassing. And then Macy needs, there's clearly a communication barrier between the three of them, because there's no communication ever. The three of them just look lost when they're on the pitch together, and it's so frustrating. Furuhashi, fair enough, he's went and scored the goal, but it's no difficult to score if you're playing against a bunch of potatoes at the back. Absolutely horrendous defending. It's worse defending than it is good attacking play.
Just to come in on what Harry said there, Liam, sorry. I know that I would pin the blame on Hanlon for the first one. If I do think he has to take his line off of Porteous or match the run. You know, I think he doesn't really do either. It's the first time, what was it, the 55th minute? It's the first time in 55 minutes that the defence or anyone in the team had really switched off. But what I wanted to touch on was Harry about the communication. I think there's a massive issue there now. It's something I've sort of tried to look out for since the semi-final. Obviously, with the goal that we conceded, there was we don't know what was said, but it looked like there was a communication error there between Macy and Porteous. And I think between they two particularly, like as fans, we all know Macy's distribution's poor. Ryan Porteous is constantly berating Macy for his distribution, and I understand you want better, but at the end of the day, sometimes I think you've got to accept he's your teammate, and also if you know he's not good with his feet, stop putting him in these situations. Like take ownership of it yourself sometimes to an extent, but just the communication point, I don't think the defence are entirely comfortable with the goalkeeper right now.
With all due respect, you've got a hat captain that says nothing and a goalie that can't kick. So really, as a professional football player, you should be able to kick the ball regardless.
I agree, but I think Porteous screaming at him's not right. But like, what's the you know what I mean? Okay, Macy's kicked the ball to play. You don't need to berate him. I think there's a massive trust issue, specifically between Porteous and Macy right now, currently. Just from what
I also think Hanlon's holding Porteous back, to be fair. I think Porteous has bagfuls of ability, but Hanlon's holding him back because Hanlon's not good enough.
I entirely disagree with that comment. To be
How
honest,
do you explain away? This is to anybody. It's not aimed at any individual. But how do you explain away a clean sheet record at the beginning of last season and how strong we were defensively compared to how many cheap goals we're conceding and the volume of goals we're conceding this season? Greg, I'll pose that question to someone so we don't have everyone jumping in at once. What's different? What's changed?
The goalie's changed. The goalie's changed. I don't really know. I mean, it could be the fact that there's no crowds there. It could be any number of factors, to be honest. I think the goalie's made a big difference. I think this goalie is nowhere near good enough for Hibs. I think whereas Marciano, there was an element of trust because they knew how good he was. He was a good keeper in most areas. But I just think that whether it's because Macy's still relatively new, whether he doesn't talk, whether there's no communication, whether there's no trust, that there could be any number of factors. But for me, the biggest one is that the goalie's changed. And I think you've gone from having a goalie that is probably better than the league.
Yep.
Having a goalie that's probably a bottom six keeper at best.
I think there's probably two factors, and it's goalkeeper is massive. I think Marciano plucked us out the dirt at times. He made because what would you say Macy's weaknesses? Main weaknesses are coming for crosses coming for crosses and distribution. Well, they were Marciano's main two. But I think there's inconsistencies with when Macy does and doesn't come for cross balls. I would say I think he is capable of doing it. He doesn't do it regularly, which I think in itself can breed an element of doubt. But I think confidence is massive. I think if you keep a clean sheet, that can start a run. I think you see it quite regularly with teams across the entirety of football. They will get on clean sheet runs. And last season across the team, we were playing with confidence, and I think you can probably pin it back to post-Rangers game in the league. The team's been bereft of confidence from top to bottom, and I think that shows in the defence.
I think it's interesting just on the defence, and we will come on to talk about the rest of the game in full. But just it's interesting that David Gray's kind of been given the reins over the last couple of weeks, and he's reverted straight away to picking Lewis Stevenson, partly through having no other choice, but also partly through just preferring him to Josh Doig. And I think it was Dave who's appeared on Quick Bang quite a number of times, said yesterday in the pub before the game that's a real trust thing. Like David Gray trusts Lewis Stevenson to go out there and carry out his job. Maybe he doesn't trust Josh Doig. I think one thing that's been very interesting from a new manager coming in is some of those relationships of trust will have to be built from the players, and the players aren't just going to inherit the trust that the previous regime had in them. So I think that there are probably a few players who, again, we'll come on and talk about this, but probably look like they're on maybe slightly sugglier pegs than others as we move on. Anyway, it didn't take, Celtic actually had a couple of chances, didn't they, Harry? After they equalised, it didn't take them all too long to get back in front of the lead. Furuhashi again, second goal, 2-1. What did you make of that?
I think that Beaton had a massive role to play in it. I think that decision for the free kicks are among the worst I've seen all season. That Abada's just fallen over and it's just horrendous. The goal itself, like, I don't know, you've probably seen the clip from Paul McGinn where he's annoyed, but I think the main problem is the Jamie Murphy comment he made was spot on. Why is Jamie Murphy, who's been in the game for about 15 years now, stood in front of the ball and let the defence regroup? So the defence is completely out of position because the refs indicated that a sub's going to be made. They take a quick free kick, which should have been called back. And if it was the other way around, it would have been called back. Because it's Celtic, it was allowed to play on and they've scored from it. But why is Jamie Murphy not stood in front of the ball and ensured that a quick free kick can't take place? It's embarrassing, it's lazy, it's pathetic. Like that good finish, fair enough, but where's Macy going? Like I don't understand it. It's just we've conceded 2 pish goals and we handed Celtic the cup when they didn't deserve it because they're a bunch of miserable gits. And John Beaton was about celebrating with them when they scored the second. Just horrendous.
I think sorry Liam, just obviously you mentioned Celtic had a couple of chances. I think the best chance of the game fell to Kevin Nisbet. Through good work of his own, through from open out with the goals, best chance of the game through great work of his own. Tied Starfelt up at knots, but real good striker play for Nisbet. And I think Harry mentioned it earlier about the first half. I don't think we were any better against Rangers than we were yesterday. I really don't. We scored 3 goals in the first half from 3 chances we took. Maybe better at the back, but in the second half, we could have easily scored 3 goals yesterday.
I think that's a really cool take, and I think it's a cool take. I think it's almost Ian Cathro-esque to start separating the play that happens in the final third. We didn't do enough in the final third to win the game. So take away the goal. We created as many chances. We were as good as we were against Rangers.
We created as many chances yesterday as we did against Rangers.
Even defensively, we were miles better against Rangers. We defended our own box very, very well against Rangers right from the minute really that they started showing any interest in the game and they got a goal back. I don't think you can compare the 2 performances. I'm sorry. I think we're miles.
No, that's fair. I don't think there was. That's absolutely fine. I don't believe there was too much in it. Like I don't think performance is dictated by result. Obviously, result is what matters. We'd all much rather be sitting here like winning every game. But like we've spoken in the past about losing games and you can still play well and lose and stuff. I didn't think Hibs were. I thought Hibs were all right yesterday, but I do think we probably got carried away with how good we were in the semi-final as well. But it was a different. You're right, because ultimately, if you're 3-0 inside half an hour, you're not going to keep fucking going. You know what I mean? It is a different game. The second goal though. I don't think you can't see it on a camera angle. We couldn't see it in the stand, but I'm not going to doubt Paul McGinn or David Gray when they say, for all intents and purposes, it looked like the sub was going to be made. You can't see it on the camera angle. We wouldn't have known at the ground, but I believe them. But again, just like the first goal, it's concentration. I think Matt Macy and Ryan Porteous are absolutely sleeping for the second goal. Kyogo runs right across Porteous. If he's alive to that, he goes with him. Matt Macy's not concentrating, he's in no man's land. He's probably in the worst position he could be. He's in the position where he can't come for the ball and he can't get back to his line. If he's 5 yards further back, Kyogo probably can't chip him. If he's 5 yards forward, he probably intercepts the pass. Like I think the pair of them are sleeping for it, and people like if we're dropping a centre half, I'm dropping Ryan Porteous before I'm dropping Paul Hanlon.
Your captain's got his back turned to the ball when the free kick's taken.
But what impact does that have on the goal? What impact does that have on the goal? What impact? No, but what impact does it have on the goal? Doesn't have a single bit of impact on the goal.
So it's about 5 yards.
You can criticise them as much as you want. It doesn't have an impact on the goal in the slightest.
Okay, if that's what you think, fair enough.
Just before you two start arguing, an interesting point. I think one proper strength of Macy's game, I think it's fair to say, is his ability to make saves in a one-on-one situation. I think that time and again this season, that's what he's been best at. And as Ewan touched on there, the position he put himself in, because if he's standing flat-footed on the line, at least he can come out and make it difficult. Because for Furuhashi, a player of that quality, even though he has a diving wee gimp, a player of that quality, if you give him the option to chip you, that's a real possibility he's going to score. And his only option there was to chip him. And then if you give a player of any quality that opportunity, it's an absolute mishap from Macy. That was such a red flag. I mean, every time you watch it back, I get more annoyed. I just thought it was horrendous. The whole back line. I genuinely think we're 2 lapses in concentration away from winning the cup, because I genuinely think outside those 2 chances, Celtic weren't scoring. I wasn't intimidated at all anytime they went forward. It was just us shooting ourselves in the foot twice.
It's dead ball situations. We've been sleeping twice. Like we just said, Liam, against Rangers, we defended our box well. I think we've done that yesterday well as well, from corners, from open play. Yes, obviously, I think Celtic maybe had a chance right after the second goal. Macy made a decent save, if I seem to remember. I think maybe from Rogic. But out with that, we defended well, and it's just concentration on both goals. And I think David Gray's interview after the game summed it up pretty well.
100%. Right, okay. There's still some talking points left in the game. I'm keen to get this game in the rear view mirror as quickly as fucking possible. So let's just fucking get right to it. Hibs, bit of a hoofball, to be honest. wee bit of a hoofball, falls to Kevin Nisbet, was it? Hits the crossbar, comes back out.
Yeah.
You're talking to a guy who's not watched any replay of the game because it hurts too much to watch anything.
Scott Allen puts it in. Hanlon wins the first header. Nisbet hits the post.
Nisbet hits the post. There's a shove, I think it's fair to say, two-handed shove from Starfelt and Porteous' back. Ball comes back out. Hibs don't have players to react to it because one of them's on the ground and the others are kind of standing around. I'm not even going to ask whether you think it's a penalty because I think it's just a completely pointless question. I think everybody in the stand, apart from John, or everyone in the stadium, apart from John Beaton, knew it was a penalty.
I think John Beaton didn't know it was a penalty, to be honest, mate. I think that's what sucks.
Didn't have the cojones to give it, perhaps. This is difficult because I think we have had a fair go at referees this season. And we've probably discussed at length this season, which is the worst refereeing performance we've seen. Greg, did John Beaton get any of the key decisions yesterday right?
Probably got a couple of throw-ins right, to be fair, but that's the linesman's job. No, he didn't, to be fair. There was a couple of, I was just kind of sobering up during the game, so it's quite difficult, but there was a couple of fouls in the middle of the park that he gave to Celtic, and you're just absolutely baffled by it. Starfelt RKO's Porteous in the box and Hibs don't get a penalty. He's probably a wee bit he's probably still bitter that we ran his boyhood club ragged at Hampden, so he was probably putting loyalties towards Celtic for some strange reason. But
Greg, who do you think was more raging yesterday, John Beaton or the security guard who's a member of the lodge who had Furuhashi dancing? Who do you think was more raging?
To be fair, I don't think anyone was more raging than the wee security guy. He's at Ibrox every week singing the songs, and then there he is right in front of the Celtic.
That's the boy
fans.
with the football boots, eh? Like the walking in the set,
just in case Rangers need him to go on or whatever, or in case there's a pitch invader that he needs to 2 foot. But yeah, I do think he was more raging because there's wee Kyogo dancing right behind him and he was not having a good time. But neither were we, so I can sympathise.
No, I hear you. Go on and had sum up that game for us, sum up the end into the game and the game as a whole.
Sorry, was that Harry? That was Harry.
Yeah.
The one word that just springs to mind is frustration. Just one thing on referees for me. I think that referees need to be brave enough to book players for diving because there was 2 blatant dives, and my least favourite thing from any referee is waving a player, get up after he's clearly dived. Stop the game, book the wee prick. If he does it again, send him off. Don't be a shite bag. You're paid to make the game as fair as possible, and you're letting this boy away with cheating on a consistent basis. That Furuhashi is an absolute disgrace to the Scottish game, and he's an embarrassment. The fact that he gets all the plaudits for scoring 2 goals, despite the fact he dived about 6 times, is embarrassing. But yeah, in terms of the game, I don't think it was a bad performance. I think it was frustrating that we didn't attack in the first half. I think in the second half we were more than worthy of. I think we deserve a round of applause at the end. I think we chased the game when we could, and we were obviously there was a penalty shoot, but the chance just after that, Joe Newell, if he puts it anywhere apart from straight at Joe Hart,
it wasn't. Oh, Joe Newell. Oh, right, okay.
And then, the one that rebounded.
The one even after. The one after
the one after it was skied.
Aye. It's one of those things. I think if we replay that game, I genuinely think about 4 times out of 10 we win it. I know that's not great odds, but I don't think we were far away yesterday, and I think calling it a disgraceful performance is very far off it because I think it was far from that.
I agree with Harry. I think I thought we were all right, and we had chances to score. I think it was a stereotypical game. If that had went to extra time and penalties, I don't think a single person in the ground would have said it wasn't deserving. Well, obviously, it is as black and white as Celtic scored 2 goals and we didn't, but that chance at the end that Harry mentions, when you watch it back on the replay, if Joe Newell hits it across the 6-yard box, Kevin Nisbet's got a tap in. But I would also offset that with if Joe Newell doesn't shoot there and it doesn't find its way to Kevin Nisbet, every single one of us is sitting here screaming, why did he no shoot? Disappointment, and I think that's the overriding feeling, which is natural. in a cup final. But I think for the same, just disappointed, mate. That's it for me.
And let's wrap up quickly here in the League Cup final, because let's face it, we know we'll be back because Hibs are at Hampden more frequently than we change managers. We will be back very soon. We are. I mean, to be honest, I think the fact that there's still a Celtic and a Rangers end and no a Hibs end at this point, quite frankly, is a bit of a joke because we're there that regularly. But anyway, moving on. Some more upbeat news. So a little bit of energy from you, please, gentlemen. I can see that we're lacking in energy this evening, but that might be because of a number of factors. It might be the hangover. It might just be the general malaise at that disappointment yesterday. But Hibs, of course, have appointed a new manager. It was announced this morning, Sean Maloney. If you didn't know that, then I don't know what you're doing listening to Hibs podcast. But he's been announced on a 3.5-year deal. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to put my cards on the table straight away. With Sean Maloney, and I say I am very much still undecided on this appointment in terms of I like the concept. I think it's a really good idea. I like his resume. I like the things he's done. I'm totally on board with the concept, the idea of it. My issue that I have with this is I think, or potential issue is that I think someone like Sean Maloney will absolutely need to be given time. And I'm not sure that time is a prerequisite when it comes to Scottish football and when it comes to Hibs fans, and especially where we find ourselves in at this stage. And I'm not sure if we will be patient enough for him even to see out that 3.5-year deal. But I 100% can get on board with the concept. I watched his interview today, Hibs TV interviews, about 8.5 minutes long. Check it out if you've not listened to it. And I was completely bought in from the minute he started speaking, completely bought into what he was saying, how he wanted to play football. Talked very heavily about this attacking philosophy and needing to get the fans on board and the fans on side. And I think that has clearly been a real pitch as part of his kind of getting the managerial role and getting that kind of, I guess, promoted role from what he's doing with Belgium. And Greg, first of all, what do you think of the appointment of Sean Maloney and 3.5-year deal? Was that in any way surprising to you?
I'm happy with it, to be fair. I'd much rather Hibs went for a some more left field option than sticking with maybe the safer option of Derek McInnes or someone of that ilk. I wasn't surprised with 3.5 years. I think it's pretty much the going time. I hope he sees out the 3.5 years. Or if he doesn't, I'd hope that he's moved on to another club that possibly came in looking for him because he would have done a good job at Hibs. I've not actually watched the interview on Hibs TV yet. We'll be doing that tonight.
I love it, mate. You'll be bought in.
Perfect. Do you say that he's going to get rid of Paul Hanlon?
I've got to say one thing about Sean Maloney that really struck me is I haven't seen him speak on Sports Sound, and I think Sports Scene. So I think Greg, you're of a similar kind of thinking to me that he can be quite dull. Actually, his interview I found anything but dull. I found him really interesting to listen to. He wasn't just hitting out with all the buzzwords. He was actually talking stuff that made sense.
Yeah.
And he's clearly been given a really direct brief in terms of this is what we've brought you in here to do, and this is the kind of football that we want you to play. And he's straight off the bat, that's the way he's talking. So very, very encouraged by that first interview.
I think as well, when you look at programmes like Sports Scene, maybe people try and be too analytical on it. Maybe try and analyse things to the death, whereas it's totally different in management. You know, you can't be talking about phases of play to players who probably want just to hear it up front as well. They want tactics, they want everything. So no, I'm very excited. I've watched a couple of interviews. I watched the one on Sky Sports earlier, so I think I'm 100% bought in already without watching the interview. I'm hoping that the Hibs fans give him time because that's a big thing. They're very impatient. I know that I can be, but when it's an appointment like this, you know, it's his first managerial job. He's come from a very successful national team as assistant, so for me, give him time. The players aren't going to buy into probably won't be able to show what Maloney wants to do straight away because we've come from a manager that's of a very different mindset. So it's going to be a big change. It's going to be a big turnover. There may be players that fall by the wayside that can't quite fit into that system. We'll just need to wait and see. But for me, it's very exciting. And it definitely picked me up this morning.
Sean Maloney, I'm old enough just about to remember Sean Maloney first kind of breaking into the Celtic team, and kind of remember the latter stage of his career as well. And he always struck me as a very un-Scottish player at that time, where we probably didn't have a lot of players of that kind of sort of technical ilk and that ability to play football. How much do you think, Harry, that he will rely on the experience he's had in his playing career? So obviously played at a very high level, Celtic, Aston Villa. I think he's got almost 50 caps for Scotland. How much do you think he'll rely on that kind of technical expertise he's had as a player going into his coaching career?
Yeah, no, I think that your position is always really important when you go into management. That's why I think that strikers tend to struggle more than midfielders and defenders do, just because you kind of see the pitch in a different way and you kind of understand all the different roles. Because when you're a midfielder like Maloney, who kind of played like out on the wing, through the middle, like front and back, like he's kind of done it all on the pitch, and he's played it with so many like top quality players along his times. Like, who were the Celtic players that he played alongside when he first broke in?
Sutton, Thompson, Larson, etc.
That's great. And like the thing is, like someone like Maloney, if he's managed to get himself the like assistant manager for Belgium, he'll still be in contact with these people, so he'll be able to pick up the wee notes and like the wee nooks and crannies that us fans wouldn't appreciate even if we heard. He'll be able to pick up from the legends that he's played alongside. So I can't say if it's going to be a massive impact, but I can say I hope that it will be, because he's got quite a resume on paper. The only thing that's obviously the main red flag is the fact that he's not actually been a gaffer on his own yet. And I think that for any manager, it's a very scary, it must be a very scary first step, because there is all that pressure of you've done well in your career so far, but now all the pressure's on your shoulders and you need to make it happen. So I'm going to trust the process. But as you say, I think the main worry is I don't know if the rest of the Hibs fans will.
Patience is key, young Harold. Patience is key. Right, Sean Maloney. Let's delve in a wee bit deeper on Sean Maloney. We talked just very briefly about his playing career. Obviously, had a very illustrious playing career. Moving into kind of coaching, he's obviously done a bit of coaching with Celtic under 19s or Celtic B. Picked up the assistant coaching role with Roberto Martinez, who obviously played for at Wigan. Been used to working with a considerably higher standard of player, I think it's fair to say, with Belgium than he has been, or it will be, with Hibs. Do you think that could have any impact at all, Greg?
I don't think so. I think he's a smart enough man to realise who he's working with. You never know, he might bring in some maybe more intelligent football players to the club, but we'll wait and see what happens in January. I'm sure he's already got targets in mind. But look, I think Sean Maloney's been a player himself. He'll know how to get on board with people. He'll soon learn personalities, etc. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. I don't think we'll see Kevin De Bruyne at Easter Road anytime soon, though.
Maybe in a few years' time when he's ready to hang up his boots. I was looking. I did have a wee scout through the Belgian team, because he actually talks in an interview about having worked with guys as young as 17 in the Belgium setup who've made their debuts, and guys as old as 36. And I was looking at the 36-year-olds, and there's a few. I mean, they really are quite an ageing team, Belgium, so not maybe too dissimilar to Hibs in terms of some of the gaps that you've got on the sort of age spectrum of really young guys coming through trying to break into the first team and guys who are at the end of their career. So clearly there'll be some experience, I'm sure, there that'll be relatable. Interesting and very varied kind of coaching career. The other thing that he's done is he spent 3 years working or studying, I should say, in the Johan Cruyff Institute, which is a extremely prestigious coaching institute in the Netherlands. Ewan, what were your kind of? I'll ask you a question about that first of all. So on the Cruyff Institute, what things do you think he could potentially take and learn from that? Also, just generally, any other thoughts that you have around the appointment?
I think going to something like that in Amsterdam, Cruyff is obviously accepted that Barcelona play the way they do because of him.
I said it was in the Netherlands. It's actually in Barcelona.
I thought he referenced it was in the Netherlands as well. No, I think you're right.
Okay.
But I think Cruyff as general is pretty much, it's accepted that Barcelona and Ajax both play the way they do because of him. I can't imagine anything that's got his name attached to it as promoting you to launch the ball up to your striker and play for second balls. And I think Greg mentioned it about on sports scene and stuff. I think It was probably, I think we all done it last week. It's easy to judge Maloney on that, but I guess as a pundit, you want the pundits to maybe add something that as fans we wouldn't see. I'd imagine his perspective on the game might be entirely different when he is managing. I'm excited by it. After listening to him, I think after coming round to the idea, maybe looking a little bit more into him, I think we spoke maybe 2 weeks ago or right after Jack Ross, and we did mention Maloney, and we were, I think, at best not sure. But look, I think it's going to be a style of play that we want to see. And the thing, I've like you, Liam, I think with the interview I was fully bought in because he spoke about wanting to build a relationship with the fans, he has a style of play because he believes that's the best way to win. It's not, I think he said it's not styles for style's sake, but he also accepted that he probably isn't going to be able to introduce it. Like it might be next season before we see exactly what Sean Maloney wants to see when he's had a couple of windows to get in who he wants and ultimately get rid of the players that he doesn't think is going to fit into that. The 3.5 year deals, I'm not sure if he'll be here in 3.5 years either way, you know. But I think if someone comes into Hibs and does well, they'll be off inside 2 years. Maybe look at Tony Mowbray. If someone comes in and doesn't do so well, I would hope that the board give him the time to build something, even if it doesn't go well straight away. But look, in general, correct me if I'm wrong, the two managers that I can think of, is at least in my lifetime, that came to Hibs in their first managerial job, done pretty well. Mowbray and Stubbs.
Yeah.
That being said, I think they both came in to the club in not great situations. Williamson had obviously been struggling along in the bottom six, with just been relegated under Stubbs. I do think Maloney's coming in a time where there's a lot more expectation in the club than there maybe was at the previous 2 points where we've taken a manager of similar experience. But we'll see. I'm positive about it.
Good. I'm glad to hear you're positive. I'm delighted to hear you're positive about it. You know how I love just creating rumours at thin air? So Sean Maloney studied at the Johan Cruyff Institute, and a former opposition and teammate of mine, Alfred van Bogason, who's currently plying his trade in Germany with FC Augsburg, also currently studying there. I believe they may have been part of the same cohort. It surely just all tees itself up nicely for Alfred van Bogason making his homecoming to Leith.
Do you think my bookie will give you odds on that?
But he would genuinely be that would be a signing that I'd get very excited about. It's not going to happen, but I thought I'd just float it there. Anyway, let's move on from talking about Sean Maloney, and actually let's talk about some of his backroom team, because there's a number of appointments that have been made today. Some very interesting appointments. I'll just run through them all quickly so all the listeners know. Gary Caldwell, obviously returning to Hibs as assistant manager. I think that's fair to say that is an appointment that has been met with, I was going to say a mixed reaction, but I think the reaction has been less than mixed. It's been mostly pretty negative on the Gary Caldwell front, probably due to his previous indiscretions at Hibs. Valerio Zudas has joined as first team coach. Valerio Zudas, by the way, has one of the most interesting and varied CVs I have ever seen in football. So he spent time at Lazio, Regina. He spent time at Honved in Hungary. He spent time in Kolketi Poti, which I believe is a team that plays in somewhere in Eastern Europe, Slovenia maybe. He's been an assistant manager at Shkin Valley in Spartak Shkin Valley in Georgia, UTA Arad, Paphos FC, which is of course is in Cyprus, and most recently been assistant manager at Hajduk Split, who are a pretty big name in Croatian football. Very interesting, very varied CV. He's also done a lot of different roles. So he's not just been a first team coach, he's been an assistant manager, he's been a conditioning coach, he's been something called a squad leader, which I presume is a European term. It's a very interesting CV. And then the other appointment, which has been announced today, is Brian Dugan as head of technical support. I've got to say, I've tried to find out information about Brian Dugan today. and the man is completely unfindable on the internet. He is literally like ghost mode on the internet. I don't know what he's done prior to Hibs, but he's been appointed as head of technical sport, and a bit of continuity with the continuation of David Gray as first team coach, and obviously Craig Sampson remained on as goalkeeping coach. Greg, we'll come to you first. What do you make of the backroom team appointments? Clearly quite a significant changing of the guard.
Yeah, I think that he's obviously bringing a first team coach from as well, which I think as manager, you've got an assistant there as well. I wouldn't be expecting that. There'll be a lot of trust put in him. I think Sean Maloney will just be overseeing everything that's going on. Gary Caldwell will be picking up the cones and pumping up the balls. And the other boy will be doing everything else. So, yeah, I mean, we'll wait and see. I think that for me, I've had quite a big think about how I feel with Gary Caldwell coming as assistant. I think that you almost kind of need that good cop, bad cop with the way that Sean Maloney is. I don't think Sean Maloney is going to be the type of guy to go through players if they're not performing, if they're not doing what he's saying. I think he's probably more to coach them and be very technical with them, where I think Gary Caldwell will be very hands-on, quite forceful. But to be honest, the two of them have won a lot in the game. You know, they've achieved a lot in the game. They've been in England, they've been in Scotland. I think Maloney's been in America, so there's a lot of experience there. I think that Samson, Colonel, is goalie coach. I think he'll always just be at Hibs now, floating about somewhere. I'm happy that David Gray's staying on though. I think there's always a place for him at the club. But other than that, there's not really enough feelings until we move on through the months and see how everything progresses.
I think it's interesting the volume of staff that's come in. It's the one thing with Jack Ross's backroom staff, in terms of modern football, felt quite bare, I would say. It felt, obviously David Gray only came in the summer, It felt like it was Jack Ross and John Potter, and that was obviously David Gray. It did feel like it was a club decision, you know. I'm sure Jack Ross was happy enough with it, but
it was that bare though that we had Stephen McGinn and Scott Allen at various points last season sitting in the stand taking notes, which to me is,
you know, like
not how a club like ours should be run, to be honest.
I think when we were winning, it was obviously spun as a great thing. Like Stephen McGinn was obviously brought in just as ultra cover, and obviously Scott Allen had his issues, so the team were doing well in the park, and we were able to utilise these people. But again, I don't want to keep comparing it to Stubbs, but obviously he had John Dugan and is it Andy Holden? And it definitely felt like Andy Holden had that more. I don't know what exactly his role was, but it felt like Stubbs and John Dugan were much more hands-on, and Holden was maybe, I don't know, overseeing things a little bit more. So I think maybe that is it the technical support role might be something similar there. And I'm not one that worries about number of coach. I know a lot of people I think is it what's his name that was at Hearts? He's just went down to Villa.
McPhee.
He's went down
the
to
set piece specialist.
And he's been put in as like this a set piece coach or something. I don't think that's a bad thing. You know, I think if you can have people that focus and all drive to the same purpose, and each of them have their own areas, and I think as long as everyone works together, then I don't see how it can be a bad thing. I don't believe in terms of football that you can have too many, what do they say, too many chefs ruin the broth or whatever. I don't agree with that.
Harry, what do you make of the backroom appointments? Just quickly before you respond to that, I just want to say that Valerio Zudas is my new favourite member of the Hibs coaching team ahead of Sean Maloney. The guy was born in the same year as me, and he speaks 6 different languages fluently. And he's obviously a very brainy guy. He's got 2 bachelor's degrees, one in exercise and sports and science, another one in communication and information. That's fucking impressive, isn't it?
All right, well, I've taken all these notes down, so when you use him for Guess Who in 2.5 years' time, I'm getting him before anybody else. But I think the main thing for me, I think that based on what Maloney's interview today, he's got a clear philosophy that is entirely different from what the first team have got just now. And I think that it's very important that he's got other people that have bought into that philosophy too. And that's the main positive for me, because as I've said in the last few weeks, I think we've got a squad full of losers. And I think that he wants to turn them into a team, like a bunch of boys that will go out and attack and actually dominate games. And I think that the staff that he's brought in, even though I can't say I know much about them, but just with you listing off their CV there, it sounds like they're the type of guys that aren't going to take crap. They're not the type of guys that are going to accept mediocrity. So I think it's brilliant. And the thing is as well, he's not even had to go out and look for them. As soon as he's joined the club, he's like, I'm not joining the club unless these guys are coming with me. So I think that he's got full confidence in them. And that's something that Jack Ross at times, it didn't really seem like he had confidence, like he'd throw Matthew under the bus if he wasn't happy. There wasn't really that full culture at the club whilst Ross was here, looking back on it in hindsight. So I'm hoping that the whole philosophy of we're going to attack teams, we're going to play nice football, all these guys will help build into it. Like Ewan said, I don't think you can have too many staff members all believing the same thing. As long as we're all working towards the same goal, I think that it's good that we've got those backroom staff in.
Liam, you listed the CV. What's your thoughts on the backroom staff?
The Gary Caldwell one, I'm not going to go against the grain with that. I can probably understand why he's been made, and he's probably someone that Sean Maloney works and knows quite closely. I think in terms of a PR move for the club, I don't think it's a good one, because I think immediately someone who, when things start to go wrong, people will look to blame because of his past indiscretions, rightly or wrongly. So I think that's a difficult one, to be honest, a difficult one for us to swallow, because those of us who were around during that time can remember some of his gestures and some of his antics after he'd signed a pre-contract with another club. I mean, that's one genuinely. I know I've kind of made joking remarks about it, but he's obviously someone who's met through the Johan Cruyff Institute. He's clearly someone who comes in with a relative amount of pedigree, I would say, into the role. What I would envisage him to be is someone who will help Maloney implement the philosophy that he wants to implement. I'm not sure that Gary Caldwell is necessarily that guy. I think that will be down to Maloney and Zudas to try and instill this kind of attacking football that's been talked about, high tempo football. So I'm quite. I'd say my reaction is overall very, very positive one. I think this looks to me like a fresh beginning. This looks like a bunch of people who I think can help take us forward, can help bring us forward into a new era.
Am I right in saying Maloney would have played with Caldwell at Celtic and Wigan?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just think it's interesting. I think
Scotland as well, obviously.
And I just think it's obviously I think Maloney emphasised how much he maybe learned under Martinez as a player, and then obviously coaching with him. So it's probably a good, as much as we probably, as a person and the history of Caldwell, don't like him. I generally think that they probably have similar beliefs in terms of how football should be played. And obviously, Caldwell was at Hibs when we played some good stuff as well. So hopefully it is a good fit and it goes well.
I think Gary Caldwell's part of the Thistle team, in fairness, did try to play football. I think it just went disastrously wrong from a man management perspective. I think if you look at any of the fallout, a lot of the disputes have been less than acrimonious. A lot of players kind of criticising his man management style, criticising how they were informed of things. So hopefully Gary Caldwell can have learned from that experience. That's one thing I would say. And also, he has been working for Manchester City for the last couple of years. Maybe that contact book, particularly in January, could come in handy. We'll see. We'll see. Well, anyone else want to say anything else on the new management, new backroom team? Reserve judgment till after Aberdeen on Wednesday before we decide whether he's any good or not.
I mean, I think just mentioning the Aberdeen game there, just out with the Old Firm, I don't think he could have had a much tougher run of games. And in fact, we've got Celtic, but I think it's a tough run of games to come into. But hey, you've got to play them all. So
we've seen before what an easy run of games can do to mask how good a manager's ability is or not at this stage of the season.
Or to get him his jotters anyway.
Paul Hickingbottom beating all the shite, beating most of the shite. So no, it's a tough run of games, but it's a good test bed in some ways. You'll get to find out where he's at, the players. Just really, really quickly before we move on to do something else. Usually a new management, new coaching team, new era ushers in new opportunities or less opportunities in some players' cases because minutes are limited. Greg, I'll come to you first. Any players that you think who have been out of favour of late who maybe will get a look in, and any players who have been in favour based on what you know about Maloney's style might struggle to come by minutes?
I've not a clue, to be honest with me. I think that possibly someone like Melka Halbig, if he's fit. But other than that, I think the way it is at the moment, he's going to have to try and almost cover the players that are there and then try and look to move to replace and bring new ones in. But I think he, for the next couple of weeks anyway, I think he'll probably try and keep everything pretty much the same. We'll implement wee things at a time, not give them all at once. So I don't think we'll see many changes over the next couple of weeks. I think after the break, hopefully get a bit of business done early. I think that's when you'll start to really see, and in February and March, I think the style will really take off. But he needs time, and like we said, and I think that he will almost try and keep it very much the same until then, until he gets the players he wants in, until he can try and implement that a bit more. So in answer to your question, I don't know.
Harry, any thoughts from you? I know that Maloney said just as recently as the last couple of hours in that interview that he's really keen to give young players an opportunity. Any young players on the fringes you could potentially come in and see get some minutes?
I think Real recognises Real. I think that Mackie is going to be the first choice left back from here on.
John Mackie.
No, I think that Dabrowski has got a chance of breaking into the first team. I wouldn't be surprised to see Macy dropping out. I think that distribution. I don't like the concept of a goalkeeper having to be part of a system. I think that's a really stupid thing. Goalkeepers are there to save, but if a goalkeeper's consistently kicking the ball out of the pitch, I don't think that a guy that wants to play nice football is going to stand for that. I can't say I've seen Dabrowski's kicking very often, but yeah, I don't think Macy will last long if he can't get his kicking sorted.
I actually think that might work in his favour, though. I don't think Maloney will want us to punt the ball up the pitch, and Macy's probably only about a 5-10 yard pass of the ball anyway, so that genuinely could work in his favour.
I think one of the first things we'll see
45 seconds to make that pass. That's one of the things as well.
I think one of the first things we'll see, I know we're talking about players here, but in terms of style, even maybe as early as tomorrow night, is I think the centre halves will be taking the ball inside the box.
Oh no!
Like quick shot. Like we've done it fairly regularly this season in terms of giving it to Porteous or Hanlon. I think it's all gut feeling at this point, but just on the player, I can see Scott Allen getting back in the team. For whether we think it's right or wrong, I think he's, again, just you look at Roberto Martinez's teams, the type of player Maloney was as a player. I think Scott Allen to come back in for Josh Campbell. I'm a fan of Josh Campbell. I know some of you guys aren't. I think he gives us energy in the middle of the park, maybe not so good in the ball, and I think Sean Maloney will be someone that might see Scott Allen as key to implementing a more on the ball.
Do you want me to know? Sorry, Liam. Just on the back of who will probably not get a chance, someone like Gogic, who is very limited in his ability, who is very defensive. I don't think Sean Maloney will use him at all. I don't think that's really the way that Sean Maloney wants to play. I think he'll want to play on the front foot. Gogic doesn't really give you that. And I don't think Sean Maloney will be too arsed about cover in terms of having a holding midfielder. So I think that could be the final nail in his coffin at Hibs.
I think just on the Scott Allen point, I think Roberto Martinez's Wigan team for me was someone that they didn't really carry any luxury players. I think everybody in that team was expected to work really hard off the ball, and I think I hear what you say about him wanting that kind of style of footballer to kind of link the middle to the front essentially. But I'm not sure that a guy that doesn't work hard will off the ball for whatever reason that might be, will get the opportunity. But be interesting. It would definitely be keep a watching brief on the team on Wednesday. Obviously, there's going to have to be a bit of rotation between now and the Edinburgh Derby, you would expect, given the number of fixtures that we've got coming up. It is a really, really heavy fixture schedule. One other point I just wanted to really quickly note on the coaching team before we move on. I think this is the first time I've ever seen a coaching setup with not a single guy aged 40 or over. Everybody in the coaching team's in their 30s. So very young, and by nature of the fact that they are young, they're probably a little bit more inexperienced as a coaching team than you'd perhaps typically see. But just thought that was interesting that I thought I would draw out. Anyway, right, moving on, talking about the new exciting gaffer. We've got a big game Wednesday night, tomorrow night if you're listening to this on Tuesday. Where do I start? I'll go to Harry first. Harry, expect to see changes in the starting lineup? And given I said that there's expect to be some rotation, back me up here and tell me there's got to be a couple of changes.
I think there's going to be full-scale changes. I think there's going to be I think it's going to be a full set. I would like to think that he'll change the formation because from what I've heard, Maloney's supposedly been touted and sweetened up to this job for a long period of time. It's not something that's been flashed upon him in the last couple of weeks since Ross has left. I think he'll have a rough idea of what he's wanted Hibs to play like for the last couple of months. So I think that we'll have a structure in place that will allow players to get the best out of their game moving forward. I think that tomorrow's game, especially for a game against Aberdeen, will be a lot more open than we've seen against Aberdeen in the past. I think that he's just going to try his best to hit the ground running and try and get expansive football in as quickly as possible, whether that's to our detriment or not. And I think it's going to be the type of football that Greg approves of. If that is a rough idea of a system that I think we'll be playing.
I don't ask for much,
Greg approves of.
But what I do ask for is a lot of goals and not conceding any. So
fuck me, football that Greg approves of. I'm not sure Greg would have approved the Pep Guardiola's Barcelona team rocking up Easter Road, but
bunch of prima donnas.
Right. Changes.
Yes, I think we'll see some, and I'd actually echo sort of what you've said about rotation, but also what Harry said there about given the way Aberdeen play as well. I think it's actually a decent opportunity for Maloney to maybe actually just work with them. Don't know if he would have done a session today, but on Tuesday, and just maybe actually get a test run, try and get them to be as expansive as they can be, because we know Aberdeen are going to try and play that way. That's generally been the main difference for them under Glass. Now I think we'll see Cadden back in if he's fit. I think we'll probably see Josh Doig come back in. It's worth noting, I think Lewis Stevenson's been absolutely superb in the games that he has played under David Gray. But I think Josh Doig will come back in again if fit. I think Stevenson obviously did get taken off, and I did think in the second half he maybe did look a little bit tired. And like I say, I think I'm probably expect Scott Allen to start, if I'm honest, which I wouldn't, if I'm honest, being too much support of. But I think Scott Allen will come back in, and fuck it, let's go two up top and I'll get Christian Doidge in there. So wholesale changes, why no?
Right, listen, I'm gonna transport myself into Greg's brain here and tell you the changes that Greg said. So Greg would bring Dabrowski in for Macy, he'd bring Cadden in for McGinn, he'd bring any cunt in for Paul Hanlon.
Harry Caldwell.
Probably just about bring Doig in for Stevenson. I think he'd still go Newland, Doyle, Hayes in the middle. I don't know about Campbell. I think you'd drop Campbell. I think you'd bring in Christian Doidge for Campbell, and I think you'd go Doidge, Nisbet and Boyle up front.
I was going to say you've missed somebody on the left-hand side that he would definitely drop.
Am I right?
I believe you missed him out.
No,
well, I mean, by virtue of the fact that you're playing Boyle, Nisbet and Doidge, you're not playing Jamie Murphy.
Where's Jamie Murphy sitting on Wednesday night?
On the stands.
Correct. I actually wouldn't. I don't know if I would bring. I don't know if I would bring Doig in for Stevenson. To be fair, I think Stevenson's been good. The other changes were absolutely spot on. I would probably be 60-40 in favour of Campbell getting dropped. But yeah, Paul McGinn, Paul Hanlon, Matt Macy, Jamie Murphy, the team would probably be like Christmases and birthdays rolled into one for the next 2 years.
And I agree, Paul Hanlon around Portugal. If anyone was dropped, they couldn't complain. There's not a chance. There's no. Because
he could literally shoot Sean Maloney's maw and he would still get a game.
If we
the boy is bulletproof to anything that goes on.
I think if we think that if the general vibe is that we think Sean Maloney is going to want to play a passing style football, Darren McGregor could never play for Hibs again.
What's Paul Hanlon going to do? Play 40-yard cross-field balls? We've got absolutely nobody.
I think Hanlon is capable on the ball. You've seen it when he drives forward as well. I think you can question his defensive abilities, but I would probably say one of the more strengths of his game is probably on the ball. If he does stop trying to find Boyle with every second pass, I do think he's capable of playing in a defence that look to play out from the back. But
I think what we will see is we'll see a much more fluid front two, front three, front four, whatever. There will be a lot more fluidity in that football team. because we have been very predictable for weeks, and what we do as a team is very predictable. I think he'll try and take a lot of the emphasis off Boyle and try and shift it elsewhere. But yeah, I don't know. Sack the defence.
Greg, to keep you happy. What about we drop Paul Hanlon for Josh Doig? Then we stick Doig at centre back, left-sided centre back, and we have Stevenson and Doig on. Doig played as centre back when he was at Queen's Park.
I'm sure Ewan said that and we ridiculed him.
You did?
I know, but I'm saying it so you don't have to ridicule me.
Josh Doig was a left.
Josh Doig is centre half. He's a centre half, I think.
This is what Josh Doig, when he went to Queen's Park, they initially signed him as a centre back, but he did play at left back, I think, and that's
which is madness because he's no one ahead of all season.
I think at Queen's Park was the first time he'd played left back, and then obviously broke into the Hibs team as left back. And yeah, she did ridicule me when I said we could play a back three.
He's certainly got the frame to play centre half, hasn't he? I honestly think with young defenders that are coming into the game now to play centre half, I think in some ways it's almost easier for them to bed in on the left of the back three and make that transition across over time to being part of a flat back four, because there's less onus on you to do the defensive side of the game, and you've got that coverage of always having the other man there. But time will tell. I think it's unlikely we see Josh Doig at centre half against Aberdeen based on what we know about the style of football that Aberdeen are likely to play. So hey ho. Anywho, right, Aberdeen. I mean, I don't even know where the fuck you begin with this Aberdeen team this season, because at the very start of the season they looked great. Then they looked absolutely terrible for about 7 or 8 games, maybe even longer. There's sort of a wee bit of a mini revival of late.
Started beating us,
finding the net, scoring a few goals. I think one player certainly that's looked like a consistently decent presence throughout is Christian Ramirez up front. Harry, what else can we expect at Aberdeen?
Being honest, he was who I was going to go to. Christian Ramirez is about the only threat I think they've got. I think he's a good striker. I don't think he's top class, but I think if you give him space in the box, he's going to score. Which is what we got punished for inevitably when we lost to Aberdeen earlier in the season. I think Dylan McGeoch has looked terrible every time he's played against Hibs since. So my number one hope is that he's on the pitch to start off. And one thing that always pisses me off about Aberdeen is I still wish we signed Ross McCrory, because I think he's a very good football player, and I think that he would have fit very well in this current squad that we've got. Yeah, but the thing is, even though Aberdeen have been getting more results of late, they still play terrible football. I've tried watching a couple of their games, and it is just eye-bleeding stuff. Even when they win matches, they're just horrendous to watch. I don't think that Glass was supposed to come in and start the revolution of nice football at Pittodrie, and it's definitely not happened. So if Aberdeen take control of the game, it's going to be absolutely horrendous on Wednesday night.
Yeah, it's a scary thought, isn't it? I think one thing to say is that Stephen Glass is a little bit further on in his project. Obviously, Sean Maloney quite a lot further on in his project than Sean Maloney, given that Sean Maloney only just got appointed today. But I think one thing I would say is that you've probably seen with the style of football and the way that Glass is trying to change things at Aberdeen is that maybe gives you a wee bit of an idea that these things do take time. It's not an overnight success going from playing. I'm not saying we played total hoofball under Jack Ross, because we didn't, but playing a very different style of football under Jack Ross to the one that we would imagine Maloney is going to try and implement. You just really quickly, any other thoughts on Aberdeen that you want to share with us?
No, I think I disagree with Harry. I think in general Aberdeen have actually played some decent stuff this season. Definitely away from what they did under McInnes. Don't get me wrong, it's not been all rosy for them. But no, I think they've been okay. Obviously they had that horrendous run, but they definitely play with the ball a lot more than they did under McInnes. I think under McInnes, obviously they were very much hard to beat and took their chances when they came, but I think
against Hearts.
I think
we've done an Aberdeen.
That's honestly the worst game of football I've seen in my life. Honestly,
we did an Aberdeen preview, and Harry didn't even mention his mate, the Jet, once. We know how much Harry loves the Jet.
This is fine. I think the game will be won and lost in the middle of the park. I think Aberdeen have sort of lined up in that sort of 4-2-3-1, and they generally play Hedges in that sort of number 10 with Brown and Ferguson behind them. That's I like Hedges. I think he's a good player. Brown's obviously got all the experience, and again, I think Ferguson's a good player. I think Aberdeen turned in 3 million for Watford in the summer, so I think like they've won 3 on the spin as well. So it'll be a tricky game, but it might suit us.
On paper, I think they've got a good team. I think that obviously doesn't always bear out in terms of results, but I think you look at their starting 11: Joe Lewis, Funzo Ojo, McCrory, Bates, Johnny Hayes, Ferguson, Brown, Watkins, Hedges. Less keen on the Jet, to be honest, and Ramirez. I think that's a pretty decent starting 11 at this level.
Joe Lewis has had a few clangers against us in the past, to be fair, so hopefully that can happen again. He's also had a couple of worldies, mind you, but...
Yeah. Right. Score predictions, Greg?
Hibs will do really well and we'll get a 1-1 draw.
Harry?
It's going to do 4-2 Hibs.
Go on, give me some scorers.
I think Paul Hanlon's going to get 2. I think we're going to have the centre-backs bundling forward several times. It's going to be all 4 goals from open plays, no set pieces allowed in this team. Every single corner is going to be a short one. In seriousness, I think Nisbet looked really good. He showed a flash of quality on Sunday that I think's been like, that's the Kevin Nisbet we know he's capable of, and I think he'll be trying to show off in front of a new manager because that's the type of player that he is. I think he's going to properly hit the ground running with Maloney, so I think he'll get at least a brace, and I think Boyle will be good for a goal too. Don't know who'll get the 4th. We'll give that one to Hanlon.
Sorry, just to come in on what Harry said there, I wish we had one of the like YouTubers that were recording the game around us just to see how much Greg celebrated the Paul Hanlon goal. Like, obviously, what he was never not going to celebrate it, but just loved it.
See if he was heading the ball that aggressively every week, I'm honest, we would never have an issue with him.
But anyway, we don't need to get back onto that. I think Hibs will edge it. I think it'll be a decent game. 2-1 Hibs.
2-1 Hibs.
Nisbet.
I'm going to go for 3-1 Hibs. I think we'll find a way to do it on Wednesday night. I really do. I think Christian Doidge is going to get his first goal back, which is going to start the run of a Christian Doidge streak, as we often know happens. And I think we're going to get a couple of goals courtesy of Martin Boyle. Because quite frankly, I look at that team and I think, who else is going to score? I was going to pick one of our midfielders, and I was like, oh no, our midfielders don't score goals.
It's literally just picking from Nisbet, Boyle, and Doidge if he's fit. Like that's where we're at.
One thing I would say, just to give Josh Campbell a bit of credit, I do think he does pick up spaces, and I think, given that he's the farthest forward of the midfielders, you'd probably expect him to pick up spaces, as Greg would say, bare minimum stuff. But he is finding himself in opportunities to shoot, and I think if he continues to play, I think he will get some goals for us this season if he's given the opportunity. Anyway, we've done our predictions for Aberdeen. We've got one last segment to do before we finish up, and fuck me, I am sick of the sound of my own voice, but you're going to have to listen to it for just a wee bit longer. It is Liam's Guess Who. We have got 5 players lined up, 5 clues. There's no theme this week. This is 5 random Hibs players of our lifetimes selected, and I will reveal clues about them one by one until someone gets it right, essentially. There are 5 clues. You get 5 points for getting one right. If you guess wrong, you're out. Okay, let's get started. First clue. I played exclusively in my career in Scotland and England. Okay. I was born on the 27th of August, 1982. I started my youth career with Manchester United. I finished my career with Bolton Wanderers, however, I didn't make a single appearance.
Danny Galbraith? Oh, for sure.
Final clue. I am a goalkeeper.
Definitely know him then.
Ben Williams.
Correct. Well done, Mr. Lumsden. Ben Williams. Excellent.
No, I was shooting in the total wrong ballpark there because I was like 82. That would make him 29.
Okay. I finished and ended my career in my country of birth.
Can I just check? Did you say finished and ended there?
Yeah, his career in his country of birth.
No, he started and ended his career.
I thought he said finished and ended.
Oh, started and ended. Sorry,
right,
started and ended. Yeah. I was signed by none other than John Yogi Hughes.
Okay.
Following the appointment of Colin Calderwood, I lost my place in the team.
Victor Paulson.
Incorrect.
Just went there.
I'm currently head coach of a club in my home country of the Netherlands.
Edwin de Graaf.
Correct again, Mr. Lumsden. 2 out of 2. 10 points on the board already.
Night.
Final clue with that one was my best moments in the Hibs career came in the Europa League.
Second leg against Maribor.
The end.
Who's the head coach of?
Nac Breda.
I was going to say, is it not the team that we signed him for?
No, that was Excelsior Rotterdam. No, you're right. No, we did sign him from Nac Breda. He went to Excelsior Rotterdam after us. Right, okay. Third clue, third player. This third player is also currently a head coach of a club in his homeland. Okay. And for that country in his homeland, he made 106 appearances at international level.
Come down.
He played in several countries: Scotland, England, Sweden, and Finland. Fourth clue. His first job in management was as Greenock Morton's under-20s head coach.
Jonathan Johansson.
Correct, Greg Lumsden again. 3 out of 3.
Who did he go to Morton with?
Me, I don't know. That's not in the sheet.
It's not the clue.
It was possibly under
Shields.
Jim Duffy, I think, was it not? Or was it under Duffy?
Possibly. He did actually. He lost his job to Stephen Craigan. Imagine that. Imagine. I mean, that's a real lowlight in anyone's career, losing their job to Stephen Craigan. There's not many people who can say that either. I lost my job.
No wonder he went back to Finland after that.
Yes, currently manager of TPS in Finland. Who I think Mixu Patalainen was maybe manager of as well.
TPS Turku or something like he was manager of them as well. Yeah.
It's obviously where they all go. TPS Turku.
Mixu's at Hong Kong now, isn't he?
He is indeed. Jonathan Johansson's Hibs career wasn't great, was it?
The worst part about it was he had JJ on the back of his top.
Yeah. Did he make his debut in an Edinburgh derby against Hearts?
He did.
I think that's we lost 1-0. Was that the game Ian Murray had 0-7 shaved in the back of his head, or am I confusing it with another game?
No, was that game no 0-0?
Maybe it was.
I can't mind.
It was a bad game. It was at Tynecastle.
It was bad.
He signed in the summer, though, eh? Like it was a summer signing, isn't it?
No, it was winter.
The January window.
It must be the summer after. I just remember being in the mint kit away at Dunfermline. It's pretty much
he definitely signed in the January window.
Anyway, after 3 rounds, Greg has got an unassailable lead of 15 points. Another 2 against 0.
Losing the night, like.
Harry and Ewan are playing for Pride now, that's fair to say.
As long as it be Harry.
Okay, my next player was born in Southampton on the 14th of October 1982.
So just to clarify, that makes him 39, right?
Correct.
Not 29, right?
Matthew and me.
Thanks.
He was signed by Mixu Patalainen.
Right.
He was a left-footed player who could play left back, left midfield, and occasionally central midfield as well. He left Hibs to sign for the Australian Giants, South Melbourne.
Joe Keenan.
Correct. Joe Keenan. Joseph
Remembered
Keenan.
best for an absolute
Sitter.
and a 3-1 win against St Mirren when he managed to
He
put the
was-
top tier
he
in a
was
-5
really
about
bad.
6 yards out.
Like, he was genuinely one of the worst
Can I ask,
football
was one of
players
the
I've seen
clues
at
that he
Easter
was that he played for Chelsea? I'm sure they played for
He
Chelsea.
was,
Yeah.
started his youth year at Chelsea.
Was that one
he
of the
actually
clues?
he made 2 appearances at Chelsea. That was my final clue. 2 appearances for Chelsea in his youth career. Right, final one. Harry, no pressure, but we're really hoping that you get off the mark here. No pressure, but there's actually quite a lot of pressure. Okay, we're going to go for something a wee bit different. This first clue. Current job title is Head of Academy Goalkeeping Coaching. A long title, that, isn't it? Head
Graham Stack.
of Academy Goalkeeping Coaching. How the fuck did you get that to there?
He's at Watford. He's at Watford with Laddie, innit?
Do you know what? I would be proud of getting that based on that clue. I would
Be
proud.
ashamed.
I'd be ashamed to know that. Well done.
Do you want? I can actually tell you how I knew his exact title, but it's a bit sad.
Right, I think that's enough. I think that's plenty for an evening. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you've managed to stay with us this long, well done, because we've been at it for well over an hour. Share of disappointment. You guys have obviously Sunday's League Cup final defeat, but we're back. We're back against Aberdeen on Wednesday. We've got a new manager. There's lots to be positive about, and just like to finish by saying Merry Christmas to all of our listeners. All 3 of you. Thanks for sticking with you. Thanks for sticking with us.
All 3 of you
this
who
year.
listen on repeat all week.
Thanks for boosting the numbers. And it's been a real pleasure. We'll see you after Christmas. We'll be back before the new year because there's lots of things that are going to happen to you now in the new year. Have a lovely Christmas with your loved ones and ones that you don't love as well, because they're important too, apparently. Stay safe.
Cheers. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.